I'm Madison Sofield, and today I will be presenting my Keystone, the Madison Method, creating accessibility and customizability in dance. This will be presented to you in the form of a business model in which you are, as my audience, are a mock, investor or VC. So please enjoy. So, from the age of 6, when I saw my very first ballet, all the way out throughout my adolescence, ballet was my bread and butter. I made my closest friends, I learned what it was to be passionate about something, and I learned a lot of implicit and explicit lessons in and outside of the dance room. But as I transitioned from a dancer to a dance instructor in my later teens and into young adulthood, I really started to become observant of who exactly gets to take these benefits from dance. Oftentimes, I saw that most of the classrooms were filled up with girls. They were either Caucasian or Asian, and they usually came from middle class to upper class backgrounds. And I started to question, well, why doesn't everyone get the benefits of dance? And so to answer this question, I did some research, and it really just came down to cost. A study done in 2015 showed that it cost $100,000 over 15 years to send one of your kiddos to dance. And that is a whole lot of money for a lot of families. And really looking into it, over half of that came from tuition costs. We can address, some of these, like, the garments and the shoes that students are wearing. There's accessibility in terms of donations, but really where the problem lies is that cost of tuition when going to these dance studios and taking those dance classes. So with that in mind, even though I noticed these issues around me, both in the dance studio and there was research out there, was this really a problem for parents and families and students, and what were they noticing? So I conducted a series of surveys and focus groups, really trying to figure out the key factors for why families and dancers find a dance studio and choose a dance studio. I found that number one, location was actually quite surprising. In my head, I was like, of course it's going to be cost. But location actually really is tied to cost. Location was a huge factor in terms of families making this decision, as location, in terms of how close something is or how far something is, does actually take time and money to get there. So that was a really big deciding factor. Second was cost, which makes a lot of sense from the research. And lastly, which was the most surprising of all the three, was teaching and dance style. As a dancer of over 15 years, to me, who teaches me and how I am taught is very important to me. But it was very interesting to learn that new dancers and families saw this as a critical factor when wanting to send their child or wanting themselves to go to a dance studio. So with all that in mind, who are the people participating in this market? Who are making the decisions when it comes to the dance studio's offerings and going to that dance studio? So that separates my customer segments into two, which is both dance consumers and dance studios. I specifically focused on parents of dancers, as both my previous experience as a dance instructor working with children, so I kind of have a better knowledge of that from my own experience, as well as noticing that parents have stronger buying power than maybe someone between the ages of 18 to 25 that are looking at a dance studio. The goals of both are, one, parents need to find the right studio for their child, and dance studios need to find students to fill their classes. So with this in mind, I was looking at these customer segments, looking at the problems, and I realized where a problem lies is a mediator between dance studios and dance consumers. Google is the common method for parents to find those studios, and studios are just relying on word of mouth to get people in. So I created a mediator called the Madison Method, in which dance consumers, the parents in the situations, can find studios through a series of smart searching, such as location, training style, cost, reviews, and even who else they know may attend that studio. While dance studios have a space to market their business and find new students. To address the idea of accessibility via cost, right, which was a really important factor that I brought up earlier, this is a two-sided market, right? We have the parents finding and booking their classes via this site, but for the studios, we want to create a meaningful and strategic partnership with studios to reduce that cost of dance for families, while giving them a space to show all their offerings and get more students in each of their classes, right? So it is a beneficial relationship for both us as well as the dance studios. The last thing I want to briefly mention is that little orange stamp right there. The ultimate goal, and something I'm very passionate about, is making dance a healthier, more progressive space, and working towards creating a certification service that we can provide to show that studios fit those methods. So how does all this make money, right? This is a business. So just to look at the forecast, this is based off of similar startups in the software smart search engine space, in which, that first year we're kind of hitting negatives or net zero because we're going to invest in developing out that software as well as really grabbing a strong and loyal customer base. And then throughout the years, our cost is much lower in maintaining that website than the potential revenue, and we'll see a gradual increase by year 3. The revenue is made up of, in the first year, commission from the studios, as well as advertising and paid promos from the studios. Because we want to reduce that cost for families, we really want to put kind of the cost of things on the dance studio side, as this is kind of a beneficial service for them, and not put it on the families. In year 2 and year 3, we'll have strategic partnerships as well as try to expand into the certification services, and that will be part of our revenue makeup. So where is this going to come from? Where are we going to get the customers? So we need to understand the channels. And I think the easiest way to understand this is by breaking it up into the customer segments itself. So both will be using social media strategically. There's parents groups on Facebooks, and for dance studios, they are promoting their business on Instagram or Facebook. We also want to do a referral program where, parents can, maybe get something off of their dance prices by referring a friend, and studios asking their students to book through our website and getting some, money back. And lastly, one thing to point out as well is dance studios oftentimes participate in conventions. And so this is a really great space to network and get more people interested. So that is how we're going to be getting our customers. To wrap up, basically, what is this? This is a lifetime passion of dance and wanting people to have the benefits of dance, no matter their background, no matter their experiences. And so from my experience, I wanted to create something that helps studios and helps studios grow and be successful, but also help families to be able to put their children into dance and gain all those wonderful benefits of the dance experience. And so that would be the Madison Method. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation. And I'd love to take any of your questions.
Hi, Madison. Thank you for your presentation. Having personally done market research like this before, I know that it is difficult to gain data from general public. So I'm wondering, a lot of the data you used was with parents and people who were already in the dance field. But were you able to gather any kind of data on how the Madison Method and this app would help make dance more known or more accessible to people who are not currently already in a dance class and already interested in that? How will that help broaden the accessibility and access to dance to other people outside?
That's an awesome question, and it's exactly what I want to target. So because of the time constraint, I couldn't go into all the details of how I did my research. I did target both existing dancers with young adults. So I was targeting 18 to 25-year-olds and understanding how they were finding dance, like maybe outside of university. But in terms of parents, I actually wasn't going and finding groups of parents that have their kids in dance. I was actually going on parent groups using different methods that suggested by my classmates, like Reddit and Facebook and Nextdoor, and really just talking to any parent that would give me the time of day, and really gaining that background. And what I really found was, yeah, it's Google. I use Google, and maybe a parent told me, and the issue behind all that was, I have to take the time of the day to then have my kid go test it out and see if I want it. I have to do all the research myself, and it actually delayed my kid from going to a studio because I don't have that extra free time in the day. So I tried my best to make it a little bit more sprawled, but I do want to acknowledge that I feel like one place that I did lack was, I think, my economic background. So I was, I think, really kind of targeting more areas that I could gain access to that use like Nextdoor and stuff like that, which I think does narrow the scope of the type of parent I'm targeting, unfortunately. And so I did try to take that into account when thinking about my market, but I did try to vary in terms of who I spoke to. And I'm hoping that I had a good grasp and it makes people more exposed to finding dance classes. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, thanks for this presentation. It was great. I have a question about how this helps more students get into good schools, right? Because tuition reflects a lot of things. The cost of really good dance flooring, often like special cleaning for those, right? Like you can't just hire a normal cleaning service to come in, right? The space, the actual teachers, and teachers who might be certified by the Madison Method or say like ABT's training program, right? These things are expensive to have well-trained teachers, right? So when you're connecting people to maybe a more recreational studio that maybe doesn't have some of these things that would actually be beneficial for recreational dancers, right?
Yeah.
Does this help lower tuition, right? Like how does this help those people experience still a heightened dance class rather than like, oh, well, here's the Dolly Dinkle school and you will leave, in your teens needing a hip replacement.
Yeah. I totally understand that because I did like intensive ballet. I went to I did the Joffrey program. So I totally understand those things are like not cost conscious. And so basically the why it's a two-sided market is it's not just to benefit parents and we're not just cutting the cost. It is working with existing studios to see how much they could cut off of that per class cost in order for people to attend. From my knowledge of just like being in the dance community, there is sirens going of there's a huge issue in terms of diversity, in terms of body positivity and mental health in the community, and especially the ABTs, the Joffreys, the New York City Ballets, the Austin City Ballets are really starting to get hammered down from how they treat their students and who is in those gets to be in those programs. And they already do existing scholarships, and I'm very well aware of that. And so instead of just doing scholarships for the one or two students, working with companies that want to start, moving towards a more progressive, a more not archaic, way of looking at ballet and at dance and reducing that cost with them. And nothing exorbitant to the point that they are losing out on money. From working with a studio that's from the ground up, where I worked I was there a month too. I really got to see kind of how much the cost of things were really going on. And there was still a lot of lee room and stretch room that they don't tell you about that really could go for students that need it. Obviously, not all students need that reduced cost, and there's going to be people still pulling in full. But this kind of addresses in terms of students that maybe can't afford that full tuition. Instead of a scholarship program, something else that we work with them. It's not perfect, and I think definitely the more competitive studios might feel more firmly about it. But I've also just noticed that studios across the board are just expensive. The tiny tap toes or the ABT are very expensive.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions, but thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.